We are so glad you're here, and I've got a few notes so that I don't ramble, but I just wanted to start with something that you probably recognize. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. You all know that is the Second Amendment of the Federal Constitution. But what you may not have heard is much. The right of the individual citizen to bear arms in defense of himself or the state shall not be impaired. But nothing in this section shall be construed as authorizing individuals or corporations to organize and maintain or employ an armed body of men. That is our state constitution, Article 1, Section 24. That is our constitutional right. Infringe, impair. Those words are defined as to limit or undermine, encroach or weaken, damage, restrict, limit, curb, or check. Do you think some of our legislators need a vocabulary lesson? Yeah. I do too. I'm Kerry French. I'm a veteran, a patriot, a Washington state citizen, and obviously a woman. I cherish our constitutional rights and our natural rights because I understand biology. Unlike some people in this state, I know that I am not stronger than a man, and I believe in equality. The only way that I can be equal in a situation that could be dangerous to my safety is by having the choice to protect myself with a firearm. It is the great equalizer. Some of the people here in Olympia, and especially in Seattle, are hell-bent on making sure that I and other women like me cannot protect ourselves. They want to limit, undermine, encroach on, weaken, damage, restrict, curb, and check my rights and other women's rights with a whole slew of hideous, oath-breaking bills. Oh, it's no problem for the Seattle elite who can afford armed personal bodyguards. They have their families protected by men with guns, but somehow they don't think that we should be allowed the same rights. Now, I know many of you care, or you wouldn't be here, but how many of you plan on going inside those buildings and talking to these legislators about these bills? Yeah. I hope to see every hand. Yeah. Because if you think coming to a rally, listening to a few speakers, and shaking your fist at the sky and being mad is going to change anything, think again. These people aim to disarm us. What are you going to do to stop them?
Fight back! Whatever it takes.
Well, I don't get involved in politics. Yeah, well, you know what? I have a lot of things I'd rather be doing too. But that's irrelevant. You may not be interested in politics, but politics will be interested in you.
Yeah.
If you do not get involved, we will see our rights taken from us. I'm not just talking about voting. I'm talking about a targeted, focused effort to get freedom-loving people elected and get rid of these elitist politicians who think the Second Amendment is old-fashioned and needs to go. How many of you have ever worked on a campaign? Good. I need to see more hands next time. How many of you ever have given money to a candidate? Put your money where your mouth is. How many of you have knocked on doors, made phone calls, held signs, put up signs for candidates who value our Second Amendment? How many of you have gone into the Second Amendment hating legislators' district to work for their opponent? This is where our power lies. We are a republic, and that means we have the power to elect people who come here to Olympia. You may not like party politics, but whatever party you choose, get involved. The only way we're going to protect our rights is to get involved. So who are these gun haters? All you have to do is go to ledge.wa.gov, that's leg.wa.gov, and look up the gun bills and see the names in the sponsor line. You can also go to washingtonvotes.org and check whatever issues are important to you, and every time a bill is introduced, you will get an email that tells you this bill has been introduced. Make sure that your representatives know who you are. Introduce yourself. You can track the progress of these bills at ledge.wa.gov. All bills get a number, and then they are assigned to a committee. The committee chair is the person who makes sure they get a hearing or kills the bill in committee. Once the bill gets a hearing, then the members will vote to pass it out or let it die. Then it goes to a couple other committees like Rules or Appropriations. And if it passes all those committees, then it goes to the floor. Once it goes to the floor, the legislators will vote yay or nay on it. Last year, our Senate was able to kill a lot of bad bills in committee. This year, we're not so lucky. It's going to be a big fight to keep those bills from going to the floors of the House and Senate. We have very few allies in the majority party. However, Representative Brian Blake is one, and we thank him for his courage to stand with us. This is why elections are so important. We can never rest because the price of liberty is eternal vigilance. This is why we must turn out the vote, so get involved. Now, the NRA put out an alert on Monday, January 15th, this next Monday, at 10 a.m., the Senate Law and Justice Committee is scheduled to hear multiple anti-gun bills in the Cherbourg Building, Room 4, so that's on the other side where the senators are. Come early and sign in whether you want to testify or not. Register your opposition to these anti-American bills. Now, sometimes they play games, as Bob was just talking about. Sometimes they'll put the sign-in sheets outside, and sometimes they put them inside the room. But make sure that you sign one of the sign-in sheets. Even if you don't want to talk, just register that you are opposed to these bills. After the hearing, stop by your senator's office and let the legislative assistant know that you're here and you're concerned about these. Go by the committee chair's office too. Let them know that these bills must die. If you don't know who your reps and senators are, stop by that legislative tent over there and they'll help you figure out who they are. Make sure that you're nice and polite, because some people like to portray us as being crazy and gun-toting, brandishing, wanting to kill everybody. We don't. We want our rights. So here is a list of these shameful anti-American bills. Senate Bill 5444, sponsored by Senator David Frock, Democrat of the 46th District. This would impose a registration licensing system on commonly owned semi-automatic firearms and standard capacity ammunition magazines that bill proponents label as assault weapons and large capacity magazines. Every person who possesses, transports, manufactures, purchases, thank you, Lind, or sells so-called assault weapons or the large capacity magazines must have an annual, did you hear that? Annual, every year, state-issued license with an updated license required every time there's a change in possession of the gun or even a magazine. What is wrong with these people? People would be prohibited from selling or transferring any gun or magazine designated by this bill to anyone other than a licensed dealer, a gunsmith, or a law enforcement officer for permanent relinquishment. This also mandates that any firearm relinquished must be destroyed. That hurts my heart. Shame on Senator Frock. Shame on him. Yeah. Shame. Senate Bill 5463, sponsored by Senator Guy Palumbo, Democrat of the 1st District. This vaguely written bill would require individuals to lock up firearms or potentially face a Class C felony. A felony. This intrusive government legislation invades people's homes and forces them to render their firearms useless in a self-defense situation by locking them up. So they're willing to violate not only our Second Amendment rights, but our Fourth Amendment rights. What gives them the right to come into our houses to make sure our guns are locked up?
Nothing.
I sleep with my loaded gun by my bed. So make sure you call before you come in the middle of the night. If you don't have a warrant, you're not coming in my house unless you're invited. And then, of course, if you're a felon, if you become a felon, if this bill passes and you become a felon, then you can't have a gun at all. Shame on Senator Palumbo. Shame on him. He has no problem violating our constitutional rights. Talk about fascist. Senate Bill 5992, sponsored by Senator Kevin Van de Wage, Democrat. 24, Legislative District 24. It mirrors federal legislation by proposed anti-gun California U.S. Senator Dianne Feinstein. This would make it a crime to knowingly possess a firearm, accessory, or any other device, part, or combination of parts that is designed or functioned to accelerate the rate of fire in a semi-automatic firearm. Now, when I read this, I said, well, what do you need that for, right? Well, this would criminalize firearm modifications such as competition triggers, muzzle brakes, and other ergonomic changes that are commonly done by law-abiding gun owners to make their firearms more suitable for self-defense, competition, hunting, or even overcoming a disability. So Senator Van de Wage has no problem making the vulnerable even more vulnerable. Shame on him, too. Senate Bill 6049, again sponsored by Senator Frock, is another bill that's targeting the large capacity magazines. It would prohibit the possession of ammunition magazines holding 10 or more rounds, with limited exceptions. Those allowed to possess these large capacity magazines would be required to lock up their ammunition magazine or face criminal charges. So I ask you, what is the point of having a gun if you have to lock it up? Keep your ammunition separate and locked up as well. In a self-defense situation, you're not going to have time to go unlock those things, load, and defend yourself. But remember, it's always for the children.
Yeah, sure.
But the most dangerous bill, Senate Bill 6146, sponsored by Senator Rebecca Saldana, Democrat, Legislative District 37, would abolish Washington's firearm preemptive statute. Now, what is that? That is a statute that was passed in 1983 that gives sole authority of the state's firearm laws to the legislature, where it belongs. And it allows different localities to make their own gun rules. So that means if this bill is passed, if you drive into Seattle, you might be a felon now, just because you're carrying your legal weapon. So this bill cannot pass. Furthermore, the Second Amendment rights are guaranteed to all citizens regardless of where they live, and protects against the infringement of rights of citizens who live in places controlled by anti-gun elected officials like Seattle. Shame, shame, shame on Senator Saldana. Shame on her. So remember, what day are the hearings? Monday. This coming Monday, 10 a.m. Now, make sure you keep track, because on ledge.wa.gov, sometimes they'll change the day or the time of the hearing. So make sure you keep track of that. These tyrants cannot succeed. Stand up, show up in their districts to campaign against them. Get organized with other constitutional patriots. If you need help learning how to do that, you can talk with any of the speakers here. You can talk with Rick, you can talk with Peggy Hutt over there. But we have to show up. Because gun control is anti-constitutional, anti-American, and it's plain old racist and sexist.
Yeah.
Founding Father George Mason said to disarm the people was the most effectual way to enslave them. One of my favorites, Samuel Adams, said the Constitution shall never be construed to prevent the people of the United States, who are peaceable citizens, from keeping their own arms. Thomas Jefferson wrote in the draft of the Virginia Constitution of 1776, "No free man shall ever be debarred of the use of arms." At the first annual address in 1790, George Washington said, "A free people ought not only to be armed, but disciplined." And my favorite founding father, Patrick Henry, said at the Constitution Ratification Convention of 1788, to guard with jealous attention the public liberty, suspect everyone who approaches that jewel. Unfortunately, nothing will preserve it but downright force. Whenever you give up that force, you are ruined. The great objective is that every man be armed, everyone who is able might have a gun. That was Patrick Henry.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, Senators Frock, Van de Weege, and Saldana, you are hereby on notice. We are suspicious of you for approaching our liberties, and we will not go down without a fight.
Yeah. Yeah.
You want to test our resolve? Do so at your own political peril. Remember, go inside today, show up on Monday, testify, talk to our legislators, thank the ones that support our Second Amendment rights, try to persuade the ones who don't, because we can never, ever, ever give up. Thanks for listening.
I am the chapter leader for Pierce County Act for America, and I'm also the Washington State Director for Act for America, because apparently I don't have enough to do. So, in addition to other things I do. But for those of you who are new and don't know what Act for America is, I just wanted to let you know a few things that we are not. We are not a hate group. We don't hate people. We hate ideologies that hijack people. So we don't hate Muslims. The ideology they have is not a good one, in my opinion, and it makes some people do some pretty horrific things. And so those of you who have faith, we pray for them, and when they convert to Christianity or another religion, they are absolutely different people. So we are so excited tonight to have Heidi Moon with us, and I'm gonna play a little clip before we get going. But a few things that I wanted to do. First thing we like to do is stand and say our Pledge of Allegiance, and this is just kind of a little American thing we do, so you don't have to feel weird or anything. You don't have to do, you know. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So, for those of you who have never been to an Act for America meeting, we are a national grassroots organization, and we have over, I'd say about 900 chapters all over America right now, and we are specifically focused on national defense, human rights, especially in the areas of Sharia law and Islamic terrorism. So those are the things we focus on. When we talk, when we have presentations, we want to make sure that everyone knows, just like in Christianity, you know how many different views there are in Christianity, right? There's that many views in Islam too. So we're not worried about the peaceful Muslims because, you know, actually they can do whatever they want. We're concerned about the fundamental ones who follow Muhammad's example. And so that's what we try and learn about. Because one of the first rules of war is know your enemy, right? And that's one of the problems we're having with our military is our military brass is kind of hamstringing our military, saying you can't read that stuff, you can't talk about it. And it really puts our military in a bad situation when they're trying to do a job and they don't understand what they're up against or what they're, you know, the reasons why people do the things they do in Islam. So, like I said, we don't hate them, though. We pray for them, for those of you who have faith, and if you don't, that's okay, too. It's your right, because in America, we can believe whatever we want, right? And you can believe in stones as long as you don't throw them at me. So one of the things I want to announce, at the El Shaddai at the Church of All Nations down the street on November 9th from 7 to 8:30 p.m. They are having a presentation from Qasim Hafiz, and he is, I'll just read this to you, born to Pakistani Muslim parents in the UK. Qasim Hafiz was fully radicalized, and I don't say radical, I say fundamental, by the age of 18, a hater of the Jewish state and en route to jihadi training. Hear his incredible story of how truth turned him from an anti-Semite into a defender of Israel and the Jewish people. Cool. So that's pretty amazing because, you know, when they leave Islam or when they take a stand like this, they are literally taking their life into their own hands because there are people that want to kill them for that. They call that being an apostate. Another thing, I got some really good news. Every January, we go to Olympia on Martin Luther King Day because the Council for American Islamic Relations, which is a front for the Muslim Brotherhood, and that is in federal evidence on the Holy Land Foundation trial, they go down to Olympia. So I take a group down there and I show people how to go and talk with the legislators, and actually Sharon Hannick back there does an awesome job doing that too. And I'm going to mention it to you in a second. So anyway, so we go down to Olympia, that's our capital, and we talk to our legislators, and I have been told by Representative Elizabeth Scott, soon to be Congresswoman Elizabeth Scott, in the 1st District, that she actually got a hearing for our bill for female genital mutilation. I know it's a really gross subject, but did you know that we are in the top 10 of states for at-risk girls? No. We are. It's pretty sad. And the thing is, when people come to America, the awesome thing about it is we are all, no matter what our religion is, no matter what our color is, we are all supposed to be protected under the Constitution. Not under some foreign religious law, not under, you know, whatever. The Constitution unites us all. And so we have these shirts that we wear down there, and I actually got some real quiet thumbs up from a few Muslims that were down there. So the Muslim girls are really against this because it's pretty horrific. And a lot of them die from it too. So our bill will, it's already federally against the law, but we don't have any mechanism of tracking it and reporting it. There's no requirement to report it as child abuse. So these, you know, a lot of the social workers and doctors, they just turn a blind eye, and I didn't see it, it's their culture, whatever. I had a Supreme Court justice tell me, well, who cares, they're just Muslims. I'm like, but you're in America, you should be protected under our Constitution. So we have to also stand up for those girls and say no more. And it does chip away at Sharia law, which is my other motive. Do you need a seat?
Yeah, there's a seat right here.
Oh, come on in. Join the family.
In the back of the place I found.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, welcome. Thank you for coming. Got you. Yeah, got some cords around there.
Thank you.
So, real quick, I want to. Oh, did you have something?
Yeah, just wanted to have you tell them about the connection to our medical system. With that, maybe they don't understand that our tax dollars paying.
Oh, so yeah, so we get a lot of the girls that come to this country, or they're born here to, say, for instance, Somali parents. And in Somalia, they have about a 99% or 100% rate that it's done to these girls. And we're slated to get about 9,000 Syrians, wink, wink. We don't really know who they are because the UN is picking them. Nobody's vetting them. The State Department is saying, you know, our president is saying, come on in and just bring them all in. And we've got to have a way to vet them with mental health. With did you know Idaho is quietly looking for an Ebola coordinator in preparation for all these immigrants coming in? A little scary. So when the girls come here, a lot of them are on assistance, and so we end up paying for the inevitable health problems that happen. So they can either die or they have serious, serious problems, because, I mean, they sew them up. I'm sorry to be gross, but yeah, I'll show you some pictures if you want to see it. I didn't understand how bad it was until I actually saw pictures of it. And they do this overseas with no anesthesia, no antibiotics. I've seen the instruments, rusty blades, and just hideous. I mean, I can't even believe. But the mothers do this to their daughters to make them acceptable for marriage, to make sure that they're chaste, to make sure that they don't commit adultery. So it is an old African custom. It is not in the Quran. However, it is in the Hadith. And if you know that the Quran is not the only holy book, we have the Hadith and the Sirah, which make up the Sunnah, which is the sayings and the biography of Muhammad. And Muhammad is who they want to emulate. So Muhammad was the perfect man. Hi, Sharon. I'm still sneaking in here. I love you all. So they do that, and so there's, I went to D.C. and I was talking to Senator Patty Murray's office, and I thought, oh, there's no way I'm going to agree with anything, with them. So I went in and I said, look, I understand that politically we probably don't agree on a lot of things, but I think there are some things we can agree on. For instance, female genital mutilation. And the guy I was talking to said, oh my gosh, my girlfriend is in Africa right now teaching villages about how they shouldn't do it and how it's not good for their girls. And I said, see? So we can work together. And I actually, you guys are going to, those of you who know me are going to go, wow, she's really gone off the wall. But I actually have a transgender doctor who's been through the whole change, who does reconstructive surgery on these girls. And I guess she's pretty famous. Sorry. And hate speech, I'm sorry. But she's coming up and she's going to testify on our bill. Now, politically, we are probably polar opposites. But on this one issue, we do agree. We got to protect these girls, especially if they're here in America. We can't save the world, but we got to protect the girls that are here in America. And we can also chip away at Sharia law. Now, those of you who aren't familiar with what we have done, we actually got our American law for American courts bill passed. Matt Shea from Spokane Valley, he offered 2 amendments to a bill in 2013 that prohibits the establishment of any foreign courts, which is, Sharia courts, but that also includes any UN law that comes in that's unconstitutional according to our federal constitution. That would include any other jurisprudence that is in conflict with our Constitution. So there's no establishment of Sharia courts in Washington State. You cannot use Sharia law as a defense if it takes away the constitutionally protected rights of any person. So we've had, I was working real hard on that, but we got some people that know what's going on, and in fact, my first time was Amy, give everyone a wave. This is Jim McCune's assistant, Amy. She's also running for charter review, so if you're in the 3rd Council District, she'll vote for me. Anyway, I shouldn't say that because that's not what African America is, but
Vote for Amy.
It's about keeping the republic.
That's right. So Jim is her boss, and he was my representative, and so I went there, and I was so scared because he's up here, and I'm just a little worm here. But, when I went in there and I told him what my concerns was, he's like, oh, yeah, of course, no, I was like, oh, wow, he's listening to me. And then he goes, oh, you want to meet Matt Shea? And I'm like, okay. So I had heard of him, but I had never met him. And I knew that he was Army veteran. He was an infantry commander. And I found out he was a Bronze Star recipient. Just really good guy. And I remember, Amy, when I gave you that book, Sharia Law for Non-Muslims, you guys were like, what? And Matt looked at it, he goes, oh, Sharia Law? Yeah, we can't have that in this country. Well, in this state, we've had 4 cases that judges use Sharia law. And it actually, they all went to the appellate courts, and the appellate court said, this is America, we're going to use our... But the fact that we have judges in this state who think that's okay, to say, and we even have precedents for one of the cases, that say, oh, well, we're not going to give you constitutional rights because your culture is different. No. Well, I don't care. No. You're in America, you come to an American court, you should be treated equally under the law.
Yeah.
That's right. So now it is against the law for any of those judges to use that kind of discretion. So they cannot use Sharia law in consideration of their cases. Now that was just for the specialty courts. This year, we got it into all of the courts through an amendment. But I tell you what, it was frustrating because, we weren't getting hearings, or we'd get a hearing and it would die in the committee. And, I was starting to think, man, I'm just spinning my wheels. But it takes a long time to pass a law, and for good reason. We don't want to pass all these crazy laws frivolously, even though sometimes it happens. But we have have to stay engaged as citizens. So I also have voter registrations here, and if you're not registered to vote and you can vote, I highly encourage you to fill that out, because we need everybody on board. We need everyone to vote. Even if the choices aren't great, you still have a choice. And there are people in other countries who don't have that choice. You know, I know when the Iraqis were voting, the people who had their fingerprint, the purple, ISIS came in and cut their fingertips off. So we're not having our fingertips cut off yet. So we got to get out there and vote.
That's your trigger finger, too.
Yeah.
That really
So, real quick, Act for America is not a religious group, and it's not a political group per se. So we are equal opportunity criticizers of either party, of anyone who's not doing right by the Constitution. Now, saying that, we have a lot of members who are Christian, who have Jewish persuasion, who are Messianic, or none of the above, and that's okay too. We're not trying to push a religion on you. I myself am Christian, but please give me leeway because I'm not perfect. So I'm working at it. But anyway, I also want to introduce a few people. My mom and dad are back there, so wave. And don't blame them because they tried their best. So. Sharon Hannick back here and Amy are both running for Pierce County Charter Review. There's a whole bunch of people here that are really awesome, and I wish I had time to introduce you all. Pastor Ed and Reva, they've got the church down there, Christian Biker Tabernacle. Oh yeah, and I'm running for Charter Review.
Okay, so Kerry's running for Charter Review too. So.
Yeah, so if you're in Catholic history, yeah, because I always wanted to be a politician. Well, anyway, let's get started. I'm going to play the clip of the brave German woman. And I tell you what, when I saw this, I didn't know Heidi, but I was so proud of you. And I just hope and pray that some of us get that chutzpah, get that courage to speak up, even when it's not comfortable. When we see things that are not right, and she saw something that just brought up an anger in her, and she spoke out. And I love her to death. And I don't even know you, but I love you, and you're a sister. So I'm going to play this clip, and then I'm going to introduce Heidi, and then she's going to speak for a while. Now, I have a rowdy bunch. So please hold your questions until the end. If you need to write them down or something, that's okay, right? Hold them to the end. Hold them to the end so she can get through. And then she'll take questions at the end. So give me just a second to get around there and start that little video. How can I get over here? Oh, we're
Please join as we pledge allegiance to our flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now I'd like to introduce Kerry Hooks, Navy veteran, who will sing the national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars
All right, let's hear it one more time from Marysville Culture. Our dinner is about to be served. So.
Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above, from the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home sweet. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above, from the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home sweet home. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home sweet home. God bless America.
Hip, hip.